Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gloriana, and today I wanted to talk about the current theme that I'm going through in my life, which is how to really let go and flow with the present moment so that I can allow the force of divinity to act through me. And as always, I want to make sure that you know that I'm sharing with you my own experience, and I am not claiming to know the absolute truth. This is just what I'm learning, and I hope that whatever lessons I have acquired can help you along your journey as well. And I feel like one of the biggest problems I have had in my life has been that I always want to control every single little thing, little outcome in my reality. And that can cause a lot of frustration. In my personal experience, as someone that is spiritual and that believes in God and divinity, I feel like it doesn't make sense to have this belief if I don't fully surrender to that force. For me, it doesn't make sense to believe in God if I don't really think that God has the power and the wisdom to know what to do with my life, to guide me. And this is something I have been struggling with because I feel like my faith needs to be way stronger if it's gonna even exist. Because I don't see a point in having faith if I don't fully trust in this being, in this source energy. And I think a lot of this lack of faith has come from my upbringing. Because for me, God was a concept that was taught as this being outside of me. A lot of people in my life didn't really have concrete answers of what God was, and that led to a lot of confusion. From a young age, I was always wondering what this being, who this being was, who created God. And no one really was able to answer that. I was always told not to question it. And then I went into religious school where I really didn't feel like I got many answers, and my faith was not really deepened because, like, again, this being was always outside of me and felt really inaccessible only through prayer that I really never got answers to. And so God felt like a punishing being that would sometimes hear me and sometimes not. And it wasn't really until I went on my own spiritual journey in search for God that I got more answers and a deeper connection. And what I found was that God was never really outside of me. It was always this presence that I have felt since I was younger. It was a presence that knew more than me, that was wiser than who I currently am, that always had good intentions, was always very loving, always wanted the best for me and for everyone else. And it was a part of me that I always could hear, but I never always followed. And I think that because I didn't follow it, that voice started dimming and becoming lower and lower until I couldn't really hear it, especially in the years where I lost myself the most. But since I started to listen to that voice more, I found that voice is very subtle and that it speaks to me at all times, especially whenever I have to make a choice. It is always present, trying to guide me, but in a very subtle way. And it is here where I have found that when I listen to that voice, my life starts making a lot more sense. I find a lot more peace, a lot more grounding, and a lot more presence. But listening to it is not always easy because I have so many desires in me. I have that really deep need to control everything that I feel sometimes that I need to guide the ship. That ego of mine needs to guide the ship before allowing that voice of wisdom that has never deceived me to come in. It takes a lot of willpower in order to allow it to come in. And that is pretty much the lesson that I'm currently learning. And I have found a couple elements that don't allow that energy to fully flow, and I'm going to share them with you. First of all, I think it is so important to be fully present in order to allow the divine to work through us. The divine is always here. God is in here in this moment. I have learned that in order to listen to God's guidance, it is important to understand that voice is not going to be in the past and it's not going to be in the future. I have seen this and explained this before as a GPS system. If you, for example, are in your car right now and you want directions to go to your friend's house, the GPS is always going to tell you where to go right now. It is not going to be telling you where to go in 30 minutes, because if not, you're going to miss your next turn. And this is the same way that divine guidance works. Divine guidance works in this moment, which is why it is indispensable to be here, to be present, to listen to it. If we want to know our next turn, we have to be here. And the past is a huge way to disconnect ourselves from that flow of guidance. A lot of us are stuck in past situations that were probably either traumatic, that were embarrassing, that caused us guilt, and there's usually a very strong emotion that is constantly guiding us in the past. And that past situation is constantly trying to infiltrate our present moment through our thoughts, because it really wants to live here and it wants to stay alive, and it's constantly coming in and telling us, think about this, think about that, remember this, remember that, remember how good it was or how bad it was, feel sorry for yourself, and just pretty much be anywhere but here. And the biggest problem is that by doing that, we are losing this moment. We're not able to see clearly. And this is also true for the future. A lot of the manifestation movement is based on visualization and thinking of the future. And I think that there's a very fine line between constantly living in the future versus understanding that we have a destination, that we know where we're going, but being really present here in order to appreciate the journey, appreciate where we are, and be fully guided by just being present. A lot of the times we live in the future expecting things to get better, wanting things to change, wanting people to change, things to go our way, that we miss this moment. We're unable to appreciate the beauty around us because we're not seeing it. We're constantly trying to ignore this moment by daydreaming, and daydreaming just keeps us away from that divine flow that is always here. And some of these culprits that keep us in the future are worry, anxiety, fear. Worry, anxiety, and fear and doubt are some of the biggest energies that keep us away from that divine flow. Because when we're worrying, our mind is in the future. When we're doubting, it is because we don't fully trust this divine flow, which, like I said, it doesn't make sense to even, first of all, believe or have any faith if we don't fully rest our lives in this divine energy. Anxiety, again, is also living in our minds, living in our thoughts, not fully being present. And when we're able to understand that these elements are constantly living within us, constantly trying to get our attention, we can then snap out of this and really be present enough to flow. But of course, like I said, I'm struggling with this myself because it is so difficult to go against our mind that has been running the show for years. I read this book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment, and I really loved his philosophy of just letting go, because he was able to accept that whatever was in front of him was not his choice. It was something bigger than him, guiding him at all times, because he came to the conclusion that life just knows what it's doing better than he did. If you can see, nature works in perfect unison with the earth, and it is humans who have caused the most destruction. Therefore, why would we think that we know better when clearly everything has worked perfectly in every other aspect of life except for what we tend to create with our ego? And pretty much his book is about putting himself aside, that thinking mind that's constantly trying to control every single aspect, and allowing God to be the fountain, the leader that guides the ship And he really talks about his own struggle, how his own mind is always like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh my God, I would rather be doing anything else. Like the mind's always trying to rationalize a way to get out of this present moment. But when we really cast it aside, we can hear the why of this moment. A lot of the times we're put in these mildly uncomfortable situations that we fight so much that we lose our life. We're unable to see anything but our own desire to leave the situation, and therefore we miss the moment, we miss the people around us, we miss the beauty, we miss the journey. And I think that is what robs us of our own life. Ultimately, it robs us of our own happiness, of our capacity to really enjoy the experience, to be like a child and accept what is and do the best with this moment, because we're constantly wanting things to go our way. And I really genuinely believe that letting go is the key to finding that happiness, to finding that peace that I think we all crave so deeply. With letting go also comes the question of how much do we have to let go, because we're trying to let go of our mind so that the flow can come, but we also have to let go of the emotions that we carry in our hearts. And a lot of times we carry so much, and if we want to rise higher, we need to let go of what's weighing us down. Having all these emotions is like wearing filtered glasses that don't really allow us to see the true colors of reality. And it is a work of healing, of looking internally at ourselves and at what emotions are tainting this present moment. To be fully present, we have to be constantly checking ourselves, because we cannot see clearly if we have emotions, if our mind is filtered with thoughts, if we are holding on to the future or to the past. It is impossible to be here and to flow. So flowing, I feel like, just goes hand in hand with this present moment. This is why I find mindfulness practices to be the most efficient in flowing and in being with God, because it is only by becoming aware of our minds and how busy they are, and to just come back and tune into that essence, that we can genuinely be present. Because as long as we're constantly thinking about every single entertainment that we've watched, every single conversation we've had, every single emotion we have felt, and every thought that comes into our mind, it is impossible to be present. And I have figured out that this is why meditation is the most sacred practice in my life, taking a moment to ground myself, to really see who I am right now, what it is that is going on in my internal world, so that I can have a little more of a percentage of being here, being present, because it's really not easy. I think it is the hardest of jobs to be here. We think that we're always present, but the truth is that as long as we're stuck, like I said, in our minds, in our emotions, in the past, in the future, in anything else but in being, we cannot be in the present moment. We spend most of our time daydreaming of how life could be different. That is why in Buddhism it is said that desire is the cause of all suffering, because we're constantly wanting to escape this present moment. Just wanting to escape this present moment takes away our peace. And this is why letting go is the theme of my life, because I want more peace. I want more happiness. And I have figured out that no material thing, no person outside of me, nothing can give me that internal happiness more than being present, than really accepting this moment. Of course, people can supplement that, places can supplement that, but it is true that wherever we go, there we are. We can never escape ourselves. And I think it is an art to accept the present, to really let go of all the preconceptions of what this moment should be like and just allow it to be. I really appreciate you being here and listening to me ramble today. I know this was a different video because I was kind of sharing what was going on in my mind, but it's always fun to be able to share my experience with someone else. If you like this video, I would encourage you to subscribe to help out my channel, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.